Today we will be discussing language learning pedagogy, and under this topic we will have subtopics: nature of language learning theories pedagogy and developing relevant theories. On relationship between language and learning, Halliday states when children learn language, they are not simply engaging in one kind of learning among others. Rather, they are learning the foundation of learning itself. So when learners or children are engaged in a process of learning, so it is not the learning, it is rather the basis of what learning stands for, knowing what learning is. That is what we mean by the learning process. Rather, they are learning the foundation, as I said, learning itself. The distinctive characteristic of human learning is that it is a process of making meaning, a semiotic process, and the prototypical form of human semiotic is language. So, according to Halliday, it is the semiotic system. Semiotic system is the meaning-making system, and the originality of making meaning comes from human language itself. So, language is considered by Halliday is a process of meaning-making, which is a semiotic process. Learners of languages need to learn, number one, the language and use the language. That is, if they are second language learner, or refine their literacy, polish their literacy or proficiency if they are first language learner. Then they need to learn about language or languages, and through language, there is a third characteristic, which means they need to learn through language. The key lies in the learning area that invites students to learn to use specific languages to communicate with people in the context of linguistic and cultural diversity. So, the key lies in the context, in the social setting in which learners are communicating, and that takes into account the linguistic as well as the cultural diversity in the use of communication. It necessarily involves working in at least two languages simultaneously, and with these languages, their related knowledge, cultures, and meaning-making systems. So, when the learner is using two languages, he or she is actually using the two distinctive language systems, having the cultural diversity, having the knowledge, and also the making of meaning is also specific to those two languages which are being used simultaneously. Today, it is not sufficient for learners to know how to communicate meaning. They have to learn the practice of meaning making as well. So now the shift is not only about conveying the meaningful expression. It is more concerned in today's world is that how learners are making meaning through language. So of or learning process does not only involve a communication, but also making meaning process, which is seen as of paramount importance in today's communicative world. According to Sakrina Kolher-Banditti, as such, language or learning languages offer students the opportunity to explore, number one, moving between language and culture. So learner actually moves between the language and the culture in which those languages are expressed, the norms and the values, because for all learners, there are always at least two languages at play simultaneously. So the cultural awareness is very important because mostly there are two languages which are at play simultaneously. Second is how meanings are made across different linguistic and cultural systems. So making of meaning is very sophisticated task because you have to be very clear of the different linguistic and cultural systems which are involved in the process of creating meaningful communication. How the linguistic and cultural system of language they are learning as an additional language or home language relates to English. So basically in an English classroom, they have to understand the linguistic and cultural system that of their own language and how it is related to English or how it can be transformed into the culture which is a foreign culture. then how they can communicate meaningfully in the context of multilinguality, where the context where more than one language is being spoken, and how in that particular context one language can still be used meaningfully. How this communication in the context of diverse situation and culture shapes the identity. So basically, since language represents identity, it is the task of learner to know that how in a diverse situation the explanation or the communicative process can help the learners in shaping up of his or her identity. Developing relevant theories. There have been researchers who feel that for the most part, second language acquisition has contributed to language pedagogy. And there are others who perceive that there is a huge gap between researchers as well as the practitioners. These differences emerge from diverse conception of teachings, and so the gap or the dissimilarities have been there because of different conception and different way of perceiving the teaching methodologies. The mainstream role of second language acquisition views teaching as intuitive knowledge. It is a cognition or a process of cognition, or teaching as cognition, or as a craft where the context guides the teacher's moment-to-moment decisions, which is basically the interpretation that based on certain actions that are being taken by the teacher, the interpretation task, how those tasks are interpreted for the future course of action. So you have teaching as cognition and then teaching as interpretation. In recent years, educators have been trying to narrow the gap between research and practice, and according to Collins, the issues central to the study of learning are the need to address theoretical questions about the nature of learning in context. So, need to question the theory-based perception with regard to what needs to be delivered in the classroom context or the learning context. The need for approaches to the study of learning phenomena in the real world situation rather than the laboratory. So it is not the labs which should be the focus of the teacher, rather the equipping the students for the real life situation should be the task. The need to go beyond narrow measures of learning, and the need to derive research findings from formative evaluation, which is our ongoing evaluation that learner needs to be provided with the tasks, and then gradually you evaluate the performance on regular basis, rather the summative, which is at the end of the learning sessions or at the end of a semester or a year. Now the image shows 4 perspectives on learning based upon theoretical principles, instructional methods associated with each adjacent to respective quadrant. Orange quadrants represent student-focused learning and blue instructor-focused. So you have all these theories: behaviorism, cognitivism, which is basically instructional or instructor-focused, and then you have constructivism and connectivism, that is basically student-focused learning approaches. So developing relevant theories in the light of the methods which are instructor-based and the methods which are the student-focused, you have all these 4 important theories. Methods of behaviorism is lecture, drill, practice, rote learning. We have already discussed in detail. Constructivism is about collaboration, self-guided learning, and peer grading. Then you have cognitivism, where is visual tools, mind maps, multiple choice or memorization is facilitated. And in connectivism, you have self-directed quest, sharing of content, spontaneous learning creates knowledge. All these aspects are covered. So these theories are the relevant theories with regard to language pedagogy and second language learners acquisition process. To conclude, according to Halliday, language is the most powerful semiotic system because of its use in a particular context, situation, and culture. The learning of a language, thus, should enable students to use language in ways that are appropriate in particular situations. Bridging the gap between SLA researchers and practitioners with regard to language pedagogies has been instrumental in the development of relevant language learning theories.